Once upon a time, in the kingdom of Konoha, there lived a prince named Okachi. Despite being born into royalty, Okachi was known throughout the land for his foolishness. He spent his days gallivanting through the palace gardens, chasing butterflies and dreaming of grand adventures. Okachi's father, King Olitunde, watched with a mixture of amusement and concern as his son frolicked through the palace grounds. He knew that Okachi possessed a kind heart and good intentions, but his lack of wisdom often led him into trouble. "Oh, my dear Okachi," King Olitunde would sigh, shaking his head as he observed his son's antics. "One day, you will need to put aside your childish ways and embrace the responsibilities of royalty." But Okachi paid little heed to his father's warnings. He was too enamored with the idea of embarking on a grand quest, like the heroes of old tales. He dreamed of slaying dragons, rescuing damsels in distress, and earning the adoration of his people. One fateful morning, as Okachi wandered aimlessly through the palace gardens, he stumbled upon a group of royal advisors engaged in a heated discussion. "Your Highness," one of the advisors said, bowing respectfully as Okachi approached. "We must discuss the recent reports of bandit attacks on our kingdom's northern border. The situation grows dire, and we must take action to ensure the safety of our people." But Okachi's mind was elsewhere. His eyes were drawn to the far-off mountains that loomed on the horizon, their peaks shrouded in mist. "Bandits," Okachi repeated absent-mindedly. "Surely, there are greater threats to be faced than mere bandits." The advisors exchanged worried glances, but before they could respond, Okachi had already turned and dashed off in the direction of the mountains, his heart filled with excitement at the prospect of adventure. For days, Okachi journeyed through the rugged terrain, his spirits buoyed by the thrill of exploration. He faced countless obstacles along the way, treacherous ravines, wild beasts, and unforgiving weather, but each challenge only fueled his determination to press onward. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Okachi reached the foot of the tallest mountain in the range. With a triumphant shout, he began the arduous climb to its summit, heedless of the dangers that lay ahead. As he ascended higher and higher, the air grew thin, and the temperature plummeted. Okachi shivered in the biting cold, his fingers numb and his breath coming in ragged gasps. But still, he pressed on, driven by a reckless desire to conquer the mountain and prove his worth as a hero. And then, just as he reached the final stretch of the climb, disaster struck. Okachi's foot slipped on a patch of ice, and he tumbled backward, his body plummeting down the sheer face of the mountain. For a heart-stopping moment, he hung suspended in midair, his life flashing before his eyes. But then, with a sickening thud, Okachi crashed onto a narrow ledge, his body battered and broken. He lay there, dazed and helpless, as the bitter wind howled around him. Hours passed, and still, Okachi remained stranded on the mountainside, his strength ebbing away with each passing moment. Just when all hope seemed lost, a figure appeared on the horizon, a lone traveler, drawn by the sound of Okachi's cries for help. With great effort, the traveler managed to hoist Okachi onto his shoulders and carry him down the mountain to safety. As they descended, Okachi drifted in and out of consciousness, his mind awash with visions of the life he had nearly lost. When Okachi finally awoke, he found himself lying in a cozy mountain cabin, surrounded by flickering firelight and the comforting scent of herbs. The traveler, whose name was Kwame, tended to Okachi's injuries with gentle hands and a quiet kindness that touched the prince's heart. "Thank you," Okachi whispered hoarsely, his voice barely above a whisper. "I owe you my life." Kwame smiled softly, his eyes twinkling with warmth. "It was the least I could do," he replied. "But tell me, young prince, what possessed you to attempt such a dangerous journey?" Okachi sighed, his gaze falling to his hands, which were still trembling from the ordeal. "I suppose I wanted to prove myself," he admitted. "To show everyone that I was capable of being more than just a foolish prince." Kwame nodded understandingly, his expression sympathetic. "We all seek validation in our own way," he said. "But true strength comes not from recklessness, but from wisdom and humility. Remember that, my friend, and you will find your place in the world." And with those words of wisdom, Kwame bid Okachi farewell and continued on his journey, leaving the prince to ponder the lessons he had learned. As Okachi recovered from his injuries, he reflected on the folly of his actions and vowed to embrace a new path, one guided by prudence and self-awareness, rather than impulsive whimsy. When he returned to Kunoka, he sought out his father, King Oletunde, and humbly apologized for his reckless behavior. To his surprise, the king greeted him with open arms, his stern expression softened by paternal concern. "My dear son," King Oletunde said, his voice heavy with emotion. "I have watched you grow from a boy into a man, and though you may stumble along the way, I am proud of the person you are becoming." Tears welled in Okachi's eyes as he embraced his father, grateful for his unconditional love and support. From that day forward, he devoted himself to the welfare of his kingdom, using his experiences to guide him on the path to becoming a wise and compassionate ruler. And though Okachi's days of chasing butterflies and dreaming of grand adventures were far from over, he now embarked on his journey with a newfound sense of purpose, and the knowledge that true heroism lies not in daring feats of valor, but in the courage to face one's own flaws and emerge stronger for it.